I guess you love movies. I do too. Hi guys, and welcome back to another video in my favourite movies section. Now today, I'm going to be talking about two of my favourite movies of all time, as you would expect from my favourite movies. But these aren't any two of my favourite movies of all time. These are my two favourite movies of all time. And as you can probably guess from the background and all of the stuff around, that's The Godfather. The first two Godfathers specifically. The third one we won't get into in this video, even though I don't think it's a terrible movie, not by a long way. There are a lot worse films than The Godfather Part 3, but compared to its predecessors, compared to the first and second Godfather, is significantly inferior. Now, when did I see the Godfather, the first one? Well, the first one, I probably saw it when I was a kid, quite young. I'm not specifically sure what age. My dad is a massive fan of the film. So, I probably saw it in and around, just saw it on. Never saw it really all the way through, never really paid attention to it. But I knew of it, you know, even at a young age, because The Godfather is such a important and permeating film in terms of film as a whole, in terms of society as a whole, in terms of pop culture. The Godfather is one of the most well-known and famous films ever made. So as I got older, I saw the film all the way through and I loved it. But as I got older, the more I watched the films, the more films that I watched, the more that I got involved in films, the more that I enjoyed them, the more that I became passionate about them, the more I realised how important these movies are and how truly brilliant they are. Because, in my opinion, there are no films that I've seen that even get close. There's just something about these films. Specifically, I think the first one is just a little bit better, but they're so good together that I'm gonna talk about them in conjunction. They are so perfect together. This story is truly iconic, and every single aspect of it is brilliant to me. From the characters, you know, Vito Corleone, Marlon Brando's performance in the first film is truly great, one of his best performances, and he of course is one of the greatest actors of all time. This is a fabulous performance. This is an incredibly iconic character, and the way that Brando portrays him in this movie is, at this point, common knowledge and an absolutely incredible performance. And the supporting roles in the Godfather films, they're some of the best you've ever seen. It's so difficult to know which supporting role steals the movie. Everyone in the films are so brilliantly cast. You've got obviously, of course, in the first film, which I still don't understand, Al Pacino is nominated for supporting actor in the first Godfather film, where he's quite obviously the joint lead with Brando, probably in the movie more, and probably more important to the film than Brando is, even though I think Brando is a little bit better than him in the first film. I feel like Pacino, of course, is fantastic in the first movie. You got Duvall, James Caan, who I think should have won Best Supporting Actor for that movie, and it's so brilliantly directed. Cinematography is incredible. This is a piece of art. This is American cinema at its best. This is at its peak, and nothing really has come close since. The story of Procession, the story of Michael as he comes back from the war, and his father slowly losing control over his empire and looking to pass it on to whichever one of his sons turns out to be the most worthy. And I think Vito was always known who he is, but he never really wanted him to go down this road. And the change in the character of Michael from right at the beginning of the film, where he says to Kay, played by Diane Keaton, that it is his family but it's not him, and how he changes throughout the film and how circumstance sends him on the road to what is really his destiny, which is to precede his father, but a road that he was never really comfortable taking himself. He chose to move away from the family by going to fight in World War II, but destiny has other ideas for him, and he was never comfortable taking that path. And in the second film, the story really is complete. His slow descent into the moral abyss, his paranoia, as he struggles with the power that he possesses, he starts to question all those people around him. All those people that he holds dear start to depart from him. And then that really parallels the difference in characters between Vito and Michael. Because Vito, even though he did bad things, and at its most basic level he was an evil person, all he did for his family. And his family came before anything. That was the most important thing to him. And if it was between the money and the business and the power and his family, there would be only one answer. But Michael was never comfortable in that situation in the first place, and once he gained that power, he wasn't comfortable letting anyone have any possibility of taking it from him. And he didn't, by the end, he didn't even trust his own blood, something that Vito would never have done. His family came first, and whatever they did to him, they were still his family, and he would have forgiven them whatever they did. Specifically with Fredo, who of course betrays him in the second film, betrays Michael in the second film. The way that Fredo is dealt with, obviously, he's killed in incredibly amazing circumstances in terms of filmmaking standpoint, and I'll get into the filmmaking and some of the greatest scenes a little later on. But that is something that really, that is the last moment where Michael becomes truly alone, and it's one of the great character arcs of all time, and one of the great characters of all time. Now we'll get on to some of the scenes that I love specifically. I feel like the first two Godfather films have more great scenes than any movie or set of movies I've ever seen. There's so many, it's ridiculous. Especially the first film. Obviously you've got iconic scenes like the horsehead scene and so on. But really I think that the three scenes that I love the most in the Godfather... Actually I'll go into... There's another scene as well which I'll go into first, which is of course the wedding sequence, which is an incredible sequence. It's brilliant filmmaking in order to bring all these characters onto the stage so artfully. You get an idea of all the characters' positions, you get an idea of the world the Godfather lives in, the dark of his business and the light of his family, and how he always kept that separate, but how he always had, his family was always the most important thing, and that is obvious straight from the get-go. This scene sets up this world and sets up these characters so perfectly, which is why it's such a brilliant scene. The three I really want to talk about. First is the McCluskey-Salazzo killing, which is one of my favourite scenes of all time. It's really the most important scene in the entire two films, because that is the moment where Michael truly takes the first step on the path to becoming the Don. The first step to becoming, you know, the Godfather, to really being the next one after his father. Really, obviously choosing to save him in the hospital room is an important moment, but really killing Salazzo in that moment, Salazzo and McCluskey, his fate is sealed. And it's such a brilliantly suspenseful scene. The use of sound design, the train tracks, the brilliant slow dolly pan into Michael's face as he considers his options and realises that this is as important moment as we all realise it to be. It's a truly wonderful sequence. I also think that the montage scene, the death of the five families, the baptism sequence is absolutely incredible. The parallels of the birth of one to the death of the others, the sin and the innocence. It's an incredible sequence, and one of the great montages of all time. I also love the ending, because it's the moment where Kay truly realises that she's lost him, really, and that she'll never be able to know certain things, and she'll always be an outsider. And when the door closes, really, the door closes on their relationship, because it's just a ticking time bomb from that point on, and obviously that's very important in the second film, and such brilliant scenes in that movie as well. I love a lot of the De Niro stuff when he's playing the young Vito. Specifically the scene with the guy who owns the flats, the landlord, when he realises who Vito is, after he gives him, you know, they have an argument in the streets, and he asks him to ask the people around what they think about him, and he realises that he's the Don, he owns the entire area, he doesn't know who he is, and he disrespects him without even knowing it. Just the nervousness of that whole scene, and how you can control someone with fear. But Vito does that, but then he's also respectful, and people also respect him, and that is the reason why he ruled for so long, because people respected him and not just feared him. That, again, is another difference between Michael and Vito. This is really the most important part of the entire saga, is how the two main characters and the two Dons differ, and why one succeeded and the reason why one failed. And it's really about father and son, and it's an incredible movie. These two movies are my favourite movies of all time, some of the great performances of all time. These are Coppola's best movies. I also love Apocalypse Now, which is another movie, one of my favourites of all time, which I may do at some point. But I truly believe that these are the two greatest American movies that have ever been made, and I think they deserve the acclaim they've got. And they mean a lot to me as films. I think that they are art. They are the greatest American films ever made, and two of my favourite movies of all time. So there you go. That is my favourite movies on The Godfather Part 1 and 2. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, like, subscribe, drop your comments down in the section below. I'd love to know what some of your favourite movies of all time, as I've said on other videos. I should have some other videos up, some classic movie reviews, The Misfits and Sunset Boulevard. If you haven't seen them already, they are on my channel. Go check them out. I think you really enjoy them. I'm pretty happy with those reviews. These will be going up while I'm on holiday. Recording them in advance. I'm going to Malta, so this video will be the only video for next week. For this week, as you're seeing it. But I'll be back with more videos for you guys, and hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Goodbye.